Evan Sanders was born in Natchez, Mississippi, and shortly after his birth, the family moved to Nashville, which is where he was raised. Went to high school here, and then on to Vanderbilt, and then felt the call to ordain ministry and applied to Sewanee. Not long after Bill's ordination, I believe it was Bishop Maxson, appointed Bill as acting dean of St. Mary's Cathedral in Memphis. And maybe a year or so later, Bishop Dandridge appointed him dean. And he served as dean until his election as Bishop Coadjutor in 1962, which was pretty amazing. And he and my dad were colleagues, Bishop and Council and the Standing Committee and commissions and all the rest. And Bill, in fact, was my godfather, as well as my father in God. When he was consecrated, he was at the ripe old age of 42 years old. And believe it or not, I was present for that consecration at St. Mary's Cathedral. I was maybe 13 at the time. And I thought the kingdom had come during that service. It was absolutely spectacular and magnificent. So he became diocesan in January 1977. And it wasn't too long after that conversations really began to bubble up about dividing the diocese. There had been conversations before, but Bishop Vandross was not a fan, and he was not going to let that happen on his watch. And so after Bishop Sanders became diocesan, the conversation bubbled up again, and people started paying attention to it. And West Tennessee became its own independent diocese on January 1st, 1983, leaving the Middle and Eastern Grand Divisions as the continuing Diocese of Tennessee. And then 2 years later, on January the 1st, 1985, East Tennessee became its own independent diocese. And since Bill Sanders was already living in East Tennessee, he chose to become the first bishop of East Tennessee. After my own father died, he became sort of my surrogate father. And his wife, Kitty, died 2 weeks to the day after my father died. Since all of Bill's children and grandchildren lived in Nashville, he decided to sell the house and come on over here too. And so he moved to Nashville, attended the church where I was the rector. And so, I mean, it's kind of, a lesser man would be kind of spooked by your bishop sitting in your church every Sunday. But I was honored that he would do that. And he was always such a steady hand, particularly in conflict. I lived through, prayer book revision and ordination of women and dismantling of segregation. And he was just always, had his hand out for both sides, trying to steer the ship in the right direction. And that can be hard to do when you're the church. But he was such a fabulous guy. And it was a Friday afternoon, and I was in the office, and I was trying to make a getaway, and the phone rang. And of course, this was before cell phones and caller ID. And I went, do I get it or do I not get it? Might be Sharon, So I picked it up and I said, "Good afternoon, St. David's." In this pitiful voice, "May I speak to the pastor?" I said, "This is he." And the caller said, "Rick, it's Bill Sanders." And from that day to this, he called me the pastor.